Well, I think to tell that story, we kind of have to go back to the birth of Taipei Dangdai and why we decided to come here and do this. Our shareholders were initially involved in founding the Hong Kong Art Fair, which later was sold to Art Basel and became what we now know as Art Basel in Hong Kong. So after they exited from the Hong Kong Fair, the shareholders were looking around at Asia and thinking about how to treat this market next. And I think what we believed at the time was that Hong Kong had become, in a sense, oversaturated. There's too much going on, and if you were a young collector coming from other parts of Asia, it was really hard to get a handle on what was happening by showing up at the fair in Hong Kong. So we wanted to build a family of smaller, more regional fairs, places where you could come in as a first-time art collector and feel welcomed, learn about art and find something that you might fall in love with and kind of be your first step into the global art world. We settled on Taipei as the first entry in that fair family because Taiwan has always been so known for the power and credibility of its art collectors. So more than artists, more than museums, Taiwan has stood out for people who buy art. They have a lot of money and they have incredible taste and they're very discerning and connoisseurial. They've been collecting since, say, the 60s, 70s, and so there's real history there. And what we came in and did with Taipei Dangdai was to bring those people together and to meet kind of the third generation of those families and try to build a community that they could be excited about. And I think what we've really been able to do with Taipei Dangdai is to show the world, to show Asia, that Taiwan is not only its collectors, it's also its artists and its galleries. And that's what I'm really excited to share with you today, is some of the Taiwanese artists at the fair who I think are just doing exceptional things.
So tell us about one that surprised you, really caught your imagination. I'd imagine you've gone to see many art fairs and you've been exposed to a lot of art, but is there one or a couple that you can identify as something as a must-see and that's really captured your heart?
Well, there's so many. The beauty of working on an art fair like this is there's such a range of material here that whether you're interested in kind of classic painting or really edgy digital art, it's all here. For me personally, I quite like a kind of poetic and a material touch. So there are two artists who I would really suggest people take a look at. One is Shih Meng-hsin, who shows with Michael Koo Gallery out of Taipei. Meng-hsin is a Taiwanese artist, and he's created this really beautiful body of work about a trip that he took to Penghu, which is one of Taiwan's outlying islands. It's most of Taiwan is very humid, but Penghu is very arid and windy. It's a typically very sunny and bright place. And he went with his friends and he made this body of work, and it was kind of a really beautiful romantic trip for him. And he's created a series of sculptures that kind of materialize or memorialize that moment. So I love when art can kind of take a feeling or something really soft like that and then make it into something that we can hold on to for a long time and maybe forever. So with Meng-hsin's sculpture, it's an agave plant that he's sculpted out of fiberglass and acrylic with some wood touches to it. And it's really, really a stunning object. It just makes you want to kind of touch it. And when you do, you feel like you're kind of in touch with his memory and with his experience.
You've said that Taiwan's art scene is unique in position and different from other art markets that you've worked in or you've been exposed to. Why is that?
Well, I think every market is different, and the first thing you need to do to be able to understand the market and get productive work done is to figure out what makes it special and what there is to celebrate there. I think Taiwan for a long time has been very collector-driven in a sense that other art scenes might not be. I lived in Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong before, and I think Hong Kong was very much a gallery-driven scene. Beijing, Shanghai were very artist-focused, and I do think that Taiwan is quite collector-focused in a way, that collectors kind of set the agenda in terms of what gets promoted and what happens. But it's been really exciting to see younger collectors, people in my generation, their 30s, 40s, who in their collecting process have decided to share that with the world, to kind of set up a foundation, set up a space. We have some amazing places around Taipei now. Winsing Art Place is one, Hong Foundation is another. Places where you can go and see really experimental things that young artists are doing that the world should really be paying attention to.
The art fair, though, this year is smaller than last year by galleries participating. Can you tell us why that is, and is it a reflection in the global art market?
The global art market at the moment is certainly not in its strongest position. We've seen a decline in the overall volume of the market for 2 years running. So fairs can be bigger, fairs can be smaller, and galleries kind of have to make their own decisions commercially and strategically about where they need to be seen and how they're presenting in a certain year. But at Taipei Dangdai, our core value has really always been to keep the quality high. What we believe is that as a new collector, you should be able to come in and buy work off of any gallery, and that there's a certain level of confidence in where that's going to go. So we want people to come in and have a great time and feel the buzz, but also see really great art. And it doesn't really matter for us how many galleries that ends up being. What matters is that the great art is here.
How has, and you touched on it briefly about digital art or the digital realm and artists working with different mediums, how is that being represented at this art fair?
Sure. So digital art is one of Taiwan's fortes in terms of creativity in general. As I'm sure everyone knows, the semiconductor industry is massive here, which means that a lot of collectors are coming from that space, but it also means that there's just kind of a general interest in technology. And because of Taiwan's sort of position in these supply chains, an awareness of how technology is linked with our lives and, say, the risks that come with life in the digital age. So we have two really special exhibitions this year that are related to digital art. One is Taipei Node, which we've produced in collaboration with the Hong Foundation and the Taipei City Department of Cultural Services. We've chosen for that one artist Li Yifan, who's a young artist who's going to be representing Taiwan at the Venice Biennale next year. That's a really exciting moment because typically Venice pavilions go to very senior established artists. And for someone his age and youth to be able to do that for Taiwan, I think says a lot about where our art scene is right now. The other special exhibition that we have on is called Pulling the Plug, and that's co-hosted with the Ministry of Culture. So they've supported the production of 3 works by some of Taiwan's leading digital artists, who are Zhang Xujian, Su Huiyu, and Shuli Cheng. Shuli is an older artist. She's in her 70s, and she's been working in new media since the 80s. Just an incredible, legendary figure who's really put Taiwan on the world map. Su Huiyu and Zhang Xujian are younger artists. Huiyu works with AI and kind of cutting-edge digital production. And Zhang Xujian is actually much more traditional. He comes from a paper-making family, a special kind of paper. It's actually paper offerings that are burned for the dead. So he uses those in his stop-motion animation quite a bit. And this year he's come up with a really, really clever project about a world in which termites have turned to eating our Ethernet cables and power cables instead of wood because of climate change. So that kind of intertwining between the digital and the material is really strong with this group of artists.
That's so interesting. So what are the changes you're seeing then in buyers' appetite as far as, there was a time, especially when a lot of collectors were of more the traditional type, I would say, good few decades ago when Taiwan was at the peak of the art market or the art buyer market. What are the changes you're seeing now and what is being bought?
Yeah, so the story of Taiwan's collector base, I think we could go back to the 90s when you had a lot of collectors who were buying really at the top level of the auction market. And now we're in a moment where it's their children, their grandchildren who are active, and these are people who have studied abroad, lived abroad, US or Europe or China or Japan. And they're much more plugged into the primary art market. And when we talk about the primary market, it refers to artists who are selling their work directly through galleries rather than through the auction system. So it's a part of lifestyle, I think, for the younger generation to come to a fair like this, to meet artists, to meet other collectors. It's social, it's intellectual, and it's a way to kind of connect with the way that life is being lived now. So I'd say that's kind of the great success of this fair, is being able to connect with this new generation of art collectors.
If I were to flip it on its head, how are Taiwan artists being received in other international fairs? And is there a recognition of Taiwan artists, and who are they? Like, who are they? More the artists that have been long established, or the young new artists also making a splash in the art market overseas?
Sure. Well, Taiwanese artists are definitely still gaining in visibility internationally, and I think it's really important to have events like Taipei Dangdai to help act as a jumping-off platform. An art fair is a system for exchange. So we bring in a lot of international visitors who are speakers, curators, scholars, people who come here and can learn about art from Taiwan. Just recently we had Hans-Ulrich Obrist, who's the artistic director of London Serpentine Galleries here, and he visited some 60 plus artists while he was here. This week we have Nicolas Barriot, we have Philippe Tenari, we have ex-Ju Noel, some of the region's top curators and biennial curators. So what we hope is that when they're here, they meet with artists, they meet with galleries, they start receiving the information, and they take that back into their practices and start giving Taiwanese artists a bit more of an international platform. The interest in Taiwanese art, I think, is very cross-generational. So there are much, much older artists, like, say, Liu Guosong, like Yuan Zhan, who are in their 80s, 90s, really towards the end of their careers, who are being picked up by young galleries and young curators who find something special in what they're doing. And then, of course, we have very kind of cutting-edge younger artists here as well, who are kind of pushing their practices internationally. For instance, Steph Wong, who has work at the Fair GDM Gallery, also had an exhibition at Taipei Fine Arts Museum this year, as well as at the Tate the Tate Britain in London.
Oh, impressive. By getting those international speakers or international artists or curators here, what is it that you're trying to do for the Taiwan art market?
So cultural exchange is a really long-term proposition. When we bring international galleries into Taipei, we want to give the Taiwanese collectors first-hand access to the best of the global art market. At the same time, though, we want Taiwanese artists to be gaining visibility internationally. We want them to be picked up by galleries, and we want to see them in the international museums and the biennials and in the media. So a big part of what we do is bringing in international scholars, curators, museum directors. Some of them this year are coming to be on our EDGE Award committee. We're giving an award to the best artist in our EDGE sector for emerging artists this year for the first time. That's going to be juried by two of Taiwan's leading museum directors, as well as a director from Shanghai, a director from Bangkok, and the editor-in-chief of one of the world's most important art magazines out of London. We hope that what they see is not just kind of a short-term proposition of giving that award, but then they take that information back and we can see it in the magazine, we can see it in their museums, their colleagues may take it into other museums over the course of the next few years. It's kind of a process of cultural diffusion.
And finally, what is your outlook for Taiwan's art market over the next 5 years based on what you've seen since Taipei Dangdai started here?
Sure. Look, art markets can go up and down, but we really want to build is the community for art. We're not so interested in the kinds of buyers who are going to come in and be speculative for a year or two in the market. We want to educate people and let them see how brilliant contemporary art from Taiwan, from around the world is. And we want to become something that they might take with them throughout their lives. We think this is a 10-year proposition, a 50-year proposition. So I think Taiwanese art is going interesting places, and there's more and more of a community kind of consolidating around it.